Hello, everyone. We have an incredible guest with us today, Ezenwa Onukwue. Thank you so much for joining. I'm really excited about recording with you today. I think it is so powerful what you have built with Grant Boost and helping nonprofits submit multiple proposals across different applications and raise money for their organizations and their purpose. So I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little more about yourself.
Thanks, Vicky. I'm really happy to be here. Hello, everyone. For those that I haven't met, my name is Ezenwa Onukwue. I'm one of the co-founders of Grant Boost. We're building an AI-powered solution specifically for nonprofits in order to help you win more grants and save more time doing so. I'm excited to just kind of talk through our mission today, talk about why Grant Boost, what we're doing, who we're helping, what we've learned, and just all those things. And really excited for the conversation.
Well, before, Grant Boost, I actually came across Grant Boost. We connected before, we worked together. But then the way I came across Grant Boost was through a nonprofit that I was on the board of, Pebble Tossers. And they actually kind of helped test Grant Boost and put us in touch together again, which was wonderful. And what I want to know is just kind of why did you pick this space? And how did you get to this idea? And now you're implementing AI as part of your application. That's a big part of what you do. But how did you actually come about? Like, I want to help nonprofits.
Yeah, it's a great question. I originally started, like, my very first job in college was as a nonprofit fundraiser for Georgia State University, just calling up alumni and soliciting them for donations and things like that. And it's just helping your fellow student fund scholarships and things like that has always held a special place in my heart. And when my co-founder and I met, we had no idea what we wanted to build. All we knew was that we wanted to make an impact. We tried to build a voting app, didn't really work out. Tried to build another voting app, it didn't really work out. And so we took a moment, took a step back and said, started to try and really think through why it wasn't working out. And one of the reasons that I kind of came to was just we didn't really have a clear idea on who we wanted to build for. Knowing that we wanted to make a social impact, knowing that we wanted to actually do something that we felt good about ourselves with, we decided to just kind of say, instead of trying to start with just like our own idea of what we thought would be valuable, we just started listing out target customers, and nonprofits were just at the top of our list. And then from there, we just looked at the problems that we saw that nonprofits were facing. And a really common theme that came up really quickly was a lot of people just don't know how to write grants. And I myself did not really even know what a grant was at the time. After really just like looking into it, learning more, talking to people, we learned really quickly how hard it is to fill out a grant. You have to read it, you have to write it, you have to make sure you have the criteria correctly and all these things together. And part of it, I think, was just right time, right place. We just said, hey, let's see if we can build an AI solution. And more importantly, let's just see if people will use it. And so we put something online, stood it up. People started using it, giving us feedback, and we've been iterating and improving our product ever since. And a lot of our customers have really awesome missions, and it's really cool just being able to help them save time on their missions and kind of fill out these applications.
I mean, you make a huge difference. And, the way we came about is using AI for these kind of applications is so critical because many times nonprofits have a lot of pain, right? Applying for applications. We were looking at abandonment rate for people just not even completing the application process because not only do you need to kind of submit the letter of intent as part of many grants, after you submit that letter of intent, only then can you actually fill out the application. So a lot of nonprofits, I think, fall off in that point. And then you fill out the application, something could happen, and there's so many other priorities that application might not even get completed in time. And so by using Grant Boost, you can not only help with the actual application, but you can actually help them create that letter of intent or whatever that's personalized based on their charity as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we help nonprofits fill out different types of grant application questions. The goal is to just help you get 80% of the way there so you can get the other 20% of the way there yourself. So our goal is really to help just like reduce that cognitive load when it comes to just writing something meaningful, but also helping you personalize that last touch of it.
Yeah, the personalization is what really determines, honestly, the winning or the losing of the grant. And the competition for these grants is so high right now, to your point, right? There's so many organizations with amazing missions looking for money, and there's a limited amount of money available. So your tool actually helps them kind of stand out and apply to more of this, gives them a better chance, right?
That's our goal, especially for think about like all the nonprofits who are operating on budgets that might be less than $100,000 a year. You can't afford a professional grant writer, or if you might be able to, but you're taking a pretty big bet that you're going to win grant funding by if you're spending thousands of dollars a month or a year just on a grant writer or a team of grant writers. And so, like, we definitely want to offer a low cost, affordable solution, especially to those who are either just getting started, don't have the budget, or just don't have the time or resources to get things off the ground themselves, and help them just kind of graduate to that next step if that's the right for them. If you do have dedicated staff, it's easier for your staff to just, if they're already filling out multiple grant applications a day, this can help them save 20, 30% out of their time, like day after day, just filling out these grant applications. So one of the main values that our customers see is definitely just like time back in their day, time back to actually focus on their mission and not focusing on just like filling out the application. A lot of people know like there's just so many things that go into writing the grant application. The application is just sometimes just like one small piece of like all the different things you have to do, kind of like what you already mentioned.
It is. And the thing is, the way that nonprofits get judged on how well they're doing is reduction in that administrative cost, right? Applying for these loans, right, or these grants, it honestly, it's an admin cost. So hiring someone for $100,000 a year or multiple people could be, for some organizations, almost half their budget, which kind of positions them worse again for receiving that grant. So it's kind of like a catch-22. And so by giving them time, by positioning them, reducing their admin costs overall, you're actually helping them win these potential grants. Talk a little bit about the AI involved. Like why now? Why is Grant Boost the thing that's going to give them that extra 20, 30% of time back?
It's a good question. I think at our core, because we know who we're voting for, why like our customers tend to go with us is because like our goal is to really reduce that cognitive load, really make it really easy for you to use. Yes, you could go off and use ChatGPT to do some of the things that we do, but a lot of it is you have to figure it out yourself. You have to write the prompt yourself. You have to put in all the information yourself. You have to count all the words, count all the characters yourself, and figure out how you can give it your application and also information about you. All these different things that you have to do that we are working around the clock, not only to figure out, but to really make it easy for other people to do, the average person to be able to do these things. And that's really where I think a big part of just listening to our customers, taking feedback from how people are actually using our product and implementing it goes a long way. It would literally as if somebody would build ChatGPT specifically and only for grant writing and nothing else. And so it really just depends on if you want a really focused solution to help you kind of just like cut through a lot of the noise and the time when it comes to filling out grants.
One thing
But
I personally heard, yeah, sorry. One thing I personally heard from our grant writer at Pebble Tossers is she said, well, I want to show my voice as part of this application because it's that voice of Pebble Tossers, that special sauce, that humanity, right, that will help my application to come across the best. And so her concern was around artificial intelligence is just going to take away my power, my voice. What do you say to that?
I think that's fair if someone is only taking what artificial intelligence is spitting out and just pasting it directly into an application and just submitting it. No proofreading, no reviewing, no personalizing, nothing at all.
Yeah.
But I do think for a lot of people and a lot of our customers, artificial intelligence is actually helping enable their voice. So naturally, a big amount of our customers, I would say, are people who might not feel confident in their own writing abilities on their own. But when you give them AI, they're able to all of a sudden get their thoughts out, get their voice out, articulate their mission in a really clear way. And that all of a sudden enables them it makes a funding opportunity a lot more accessible for them. For people who are already more experienced writers, this is where I think just the AI is only going to be as good as what you give it. We can and we do try to like match the tone of the information that our customers give us to try and keep that authentic brand voice. But we also give customers the ability to just like refine their proposals, tell copy and paste the text so they can edit it however they want to. And it's really just like that human and machine working in synergy that we're really trying to go for to really help enable like that natural voice piece of it all.
And that's such a key point, right? I think a lot of times when we hear AI, people think robots. They
Yeah.
think of very structured text. They think zeros and ones. There's Terminator that always comes into people's minds, right? Trying to kind of take over their job. There's all these almost images of evil, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of times it's the precedence is not to enable them with AI, but to change their mind. You know what? You will have more of a chance to explore your voice because that structure, those ideas that you have in your head, will actually be written now, and you can actually modify. You can spend more time modifying it to make it more personal for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I definitely like get there's a lot of skepticism and there's a lot of just a natural fear when it comes to just using AI in your day-to-day workflows. But ultimately, at least our goal is simply to help you fill out the applications faster and better. And so I think there's just a lot of opportunity in that to re-educate and enable people as we kind of build our product.
Yeah, and I see so much potential in that. I absolutely love your product. I've played around with it. Let's talk a little more about like just artificial intelligence and how do you see that evolving to help your customers? Because you have kind of a version of it, but I'm sure you have other things on your roadmap. So tell us about where you're going with it.
Yeah, good question. Um, we're at an interesting point. There's like so many directions that we as both like a business and company can go. Um, we're trying to thread the needle of listening to our customers, but also building that crazy solution in the market that just no one else has yet. And so trying to thread that needle. A big part of like what we're working on and how we see things improving is just so much depends on just what you put into the AI. And there's just so much context out there that we can feed our models in ways that make sense for our customer. And so one of the things we're just looking at doing in the future is giving different sources of information into our chatbot and into our product to give our customers the ability to have like their own knowledge repositories or be able to just really accurately describe and keep a pulse on their business as things change. And so filling out a grant application today and filling out a grant application next week and filling out a grant application next year is always a smoother and smoother process for them as their business changes, as they create more content, as they create more documentation. One of our big goals is just taking all that context and finding out new and easy ways to feed it into our model. Another thing we're working on, or at least experimenting with, we've heard there's just a really big pain to read, like start filling out a grant application, and then you kind of go back and look at their requirements and the eligibility, and you realize you might not meet the requirements, and you just spent all this time. And it's like a really big pain, just kind of like sifting through and finding those grant applications and things like that. And so we're also looking at different ways in which we can help make recommendations in those regards. We don't have anything concrete yet, but it's just a reoccurring thing we're just hearing over and over and over and over again. Naturally, people who struggle to write grants, I think another problem they struggle with is finding the right ones to apply to.
Oh, 100%. And do you see like the same, nonprofits applying to the same grants year over year? Like they just know of the ones they know, or do you see them expanding every year or trying new grants?
I think it depends a little bit. Some of the customers I've talked to, are just signed up for like every email list and every email distro, and they're on every grant finding platform that they know about, and they've kind of like cobbled together their own like stream of grants that they apply to coming in. And some customers are only going after like those big government grants, and like everybody. I think my assumption is a lot of our customers really just want to go after like that big government structured contracts because it's all done in like a really structured way. But there's also a lot of like private institution money and private portals and private grants and things like that that a lot of our nonprofit customers apply to. So I think there's like two really distinct lanes of the government grants that a lot of people go after, private grants that a lot of people go after, and then some people try and go after both. But I feel like they're always like a side they're on.
There's that's interesting. And so, as you look at this recommendation engine as to what grant should you apply to next, what are some of the things that you're kind of considering as part of your, success criteria? You don't see people crisscrossing, so you would never like recommend a private grant to someone that's always applying for government and the other way around, or do you see there's something else there?
I don't think we've married onto any one solution yet. The
Okay.
big thing, I think, for us at least, is like it's the space we want to play in is funder alignment, making sure whoever's applying for a grant is in alignment with whoever's actually given the funding. And so if you're normally applying for a bunch of private institution grants and we notice that you might be better in line for an education grant or a government grant, I think we want to make that recommendation. I think we'd want to help you out there. A big part of how I see we could use AI to solve that problem specifically is to just unearth the things that you wouldn't find yourself. Like if I'm always swimming in that private institution lane, I wouldn't think to really look in that government grant section. So I wouldn't want to box this in per se. I don't know how we'd go about doing all the matching yet. Again, this is still this is a very long concept that we've been trying to work through and experiment with, and actually make sure it makes sense before we start committing code. But long term, I ultimately would want to match people with the right missions, regardless of where it's coming from.
It's so critical. I was even thinking about how we did it, and one of the things that was one of the hardest things. So we would look at whatever the private grant giver, we would look at what they've done last year's, like what organizations did they previously supported or given money to, and based on their previous awards, we would then kind of make a fuzzy decision. They mostly give to larger organizations that have X amount in revenue, so we shouldn't really apply to this. It's a waste of our time to even look at it. And I felt like that logic, a lot of that logic was so like gut feeling, like it wasn't, there was no data for me to verify to say that that was correct or that was incorrect. So it would be great not to just look at and find the grants, but also look at the previous history of data and who did they award the money to, because more than likely they awarded to a similar type of nonprofit.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense, right? Making data-informed decisions as opposed to just gut feeling every time.
Yeah.
Definitely think there's opportunity there, and we've seen similar things and heard similar things of just, I want a standardized way of kind of really being able to go about this. And yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity there. And yeah, it's just really a matter of like taking the time and bringing all those different sources together in ways that make sense.
Absolutely. And you could always start with the ones that people are applying to on your platform, right? Because you already know there's demand. But as you look, I love how, so there's so many ways that we could use AI, because AI is powerful at looking at patterns and looking at data. And you kind of have in nonprofit space, and you tell me if I'm wrong, like there is data, but I don't feel like it's all in the same place. Like you can get a piece of data here, a piece of data there. There's nothing that kind of tells you the whole story. Tell me, maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to be proven wrong. What are some of the sources of data in nonprofit space that could help make those data-driven decisions?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong per se. I think part of it just depends on the organization. If you're a small org, I think you're probably lucky if everything is in one place, like Google Docs or Google Drive. A lot of what I've seen has been just scattered documents that might be saved in somebody's computer, saved in a hard drive, or saved to Google Drive. But just like a lot of content that you've already created in the past for grant proposals, previous grant proposals that already have all your information filled out, all types of information about like your mission, your team, your company, and the problem that you want to solve in the world, I think are all really helpful things to give and help feed into a product like ours. Like we've definitely seen customers upload information, lots of information about just like their mission, their impact, or common questions that they might, common phrases or common answers or things like that that they want the machine to know about and their future answers. So like there's definitely a lot of opportunity. And then whenever in doubt, there's always like if the nonprofit has a website, that's always a place I'd recommend starting too. There's just so much information there about just your mission and what you'll do.
Yeah, absolutely. You already have all the content. It's about just mirroring it with the actual grant and your voice, right? I mean, if you can pull the three together, you got yourself a great application. So as you look at AI and progress of AI in the future and nonprofit space, I always feel like it's very much relationship based. A lot of it is people know each other, they're usually in the space for a long period of time. How is that? How is artificial intelligence going? Do you think it's going to change nonprofit being more data driven? Do you think it's going to take some time for everyone to kind of accept it as something that's useful?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a hot topic in the nonprofit space. My hope is that people will use AI to make grant writing more accessible. My goal is at least to make it more accessible. I think there's a lot of just open questions about how generative AI should be used and what it should be used for. But yeah, ultimately, like we want to see a world in which like the person and the machine are working together in harmony. I think that will have an impact and it will disrupt the industry in a way when the technology does mature to a point where it is a bit more of an automated process. But I don't see it as a way in which we're replacing people. Because to your point, the grant writing industry is on just grant awarding in general does have an element of relationship based to it. If anything, I think it'll put more of an emphasis on doing the more creative aspects of like writing a grant, um, or the more creative aspects of doing your outreach to a potential funder and how your brand interacts with theirs and things like that. My hope is that we'll take away all of the filling out the grant so that you can focus on the creativity and the actual fun parts about applying for a grant.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. Sometimes people are just so afraid they kind of miss that potential. But
Mhm.
in the end, the relationships are still a big part of how you get a grant. And if you can spend more time building those relationships, aligning your focus with the grant giving organization, you essentially guarantee yourself a much higher rate of success of receiving that grant.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, if that can free people up to focus more on talking to people and interacting with people, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, and it comes so naturally, I feel like, with for people in the nonprofit space, right? It's all about kind of spreading the word and evangelizing a lot of what their organization does and helping others. And there's so much, you know, the people are so giving and empathetic usually who go into that space that it's kind of a natural transition. Hey, I'm just there to build relationships, to build better relationship with these organizations.
Agreed. Yeah, and hopefully will help enable that piece of it all. I've definitely noticed that since we've been in the industry, the nonprofit industry has embraced us with open arms. People really want this problem to be solved, and yeah, yeah, I agree with you.
So what's next? Let's talk a little bit more about you and just like your own skills around AI and how you how you're exploring and learning about this honestly very fast evolving area.
Yeah, we are just riding the wave, drinking from the fire hose as things change. Um, the way we envisioned the world has probably been a bit different than where we were when we started this project last year. It's become as the industry matures, generative AI industry matures, it becomes easier for us to do certain things, and as a result, we're able to pass that on to our customers in ways that make sense. So we're just riding the wave right now. The easiest way for us to learn has really been to do. Um, so yeah, as things change, we are forced to make changes, or we decide to make changes. We implement them. We look at how our customers actually use them, and we step back and measure, and we say, was this a good decision or was this a bad decision? Um, but ultimately, we try to make change for the better. And yeah, as as the industry changes, as the more AI models get produced, we're just really looking at how we can use all of that to build a software piece of software that actually serves our customers. Yeah, that's still our goal.
I love that. So I have to ask is do you have a favorite large language model?
Good question. I don't have a favorite per se. There are certain things I like about each one.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't, we have used a couple of different vendors and our own. Uh, products, so I don't want to just go off on a record and say one of them is my favorite. But yeah, I'm just really impressed with the industry as a whole right now. The speed of the development, the speed at which things are getting built, and which infrastructure is being created has really made it easy for a company like ours, a small team like ours, to continue to bootstrap and continue to build our product. I don't have a favorite. Right now, I'm just really excited for the industry as a whole and kind of like where it's headed. And hopefully we can continue riding the wave.
Yeah, well, I listened to actually a video cast from Cornell, and they talked about it was more educational, and they talked about large language models, and it's very expensive to run these large language models with billions and billions of tokens for someone that is small, right? Small company. And so they talked about how those large language models like Llama 3 that Meta just that are more open source can be used to build kind of a subset or a smaller model using RAG is kind of what you're using. You're augmenting that information with personalized data from those nonprofits. Do you see that more small models being developed just due to the cost? Honestly, let's be honest, the cost of running a large language model.
I think partially the cost, but also to me, if you are going to be successful in an industry where there's giant players like Microsoft and ChatGPT,
Yeah.
you're going to need to specialize on an industry. I don't expect ChatGPT or I don't expect OpenAI to develop a grant writing AI model anytime soon, simply because it's a really niche thing and it's a really niche industry. And there are other opportunities that I believe are bigger for them to go off and solve. So I do think cost is definitely a big factor. But the other factor is just like the opportunity cost of not not specializing in this industry, or just knowing an industry and knowing what they need. There's a lot of opportunity there to just build a specialized and verticalized and smaller model to solve a problem for a smaller subset of people.
And probably make it more impactful, right? Probably that reduces the rate of hallucinations as well because you're now specializing the data to more concrete information.
Exactly. And there's what somebody might value in the medical industry might be different than what somebody might value in the nonprofit industry. And that might be different than what customers might value in the sales industry. So I think like starting with that base of like maybe a big, large language model and then kind of specializing from there, you'll start to see a lot of variations and iterations from like that original model almost to the point where it's a completely different product by the end result.
Yeah, and it evolves so quickly, right? So if you think you don't have it now, wait just a few months and it'll be there for you.
Yeah, things are definitely moving at a breakneck pace. It's been fun. It's been stressful sometimes, but it's definitely been a lot of learning, a lot of just wow, this thing looks completely different than it did last year.
Yeah. And it's going to continue like that rate of change. I think it's not going anywhere. I think we're going to continue to have this high rate of change until we're all kind of in this together, right? We're just at the cusp of it kind of accelerating at this point. So it's exciting to see.
I agree. Yeah, I'm excited. We'll definitely be excited to see where things head, and who knows, maybe in the future everybody will hate generative AI, and it may never be a thing again. But in the meantime, I'm really excited. At my heart, I'm just a builder and experimenter, and I'm excited to just keep experimenting with the technology, keep building based on what people tell us, and hopefully build our product in a responsible, safe, but also really cool way.
I love it. So everyone out there, try out Grant Boost. It's free. See how it helps you with your grant applications, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a free version of Grant Boost that we give away. So if you're on the fence about using it, it's literally will cost you nothing to try it out. Yeah, feel free to let me know what you think. You can either email me personally or submit feedback in our app. We make an effort to read every single piece of feedback that comes in. And yeah, try out Grant Boost for free.
Awesome. So reach out. Ezenwa is a jewel. He'll make sure to listen to you and incorporate your feedback. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think this was super, super informational, and hopefully will help nonprofits out there make that whole grant writing process so much easier.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Vicky.
Thanks so much. Take
care.